Peace, peace. Yeah, I'm getting some things together on my end. Peace, peace, peace. Give me 1 second. Man, speaker. Peace, peace. What you said?
Just tell them like about the Atlanta thing coming up, and they definitely want to be in that building. I'm gonna be there.
Oh,
Deal with
yes, indeed.
it's going behind energy. Uh,
Yeah, you want to tell them the title of it?
don't want to miss it.
You want to tell them the title of it? They might not know.
Don't don't want to miss it.
That's the title of it?
Don't want to miss it. Don't want to miss this. That's what it is. Don't want to miss this.
Okay.
Don't want to miss this.
Yes.
It was just live. It was just live. It was just live right now.
Okay. Well, we are collectively live over here. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and over on Instagram. So peace to the family, peace, love, and light. Salute, welcome. We have a dynamic presentation in store for you today. All right. And today's title is Catching Up or Playing Catch Up, should I say. It's the 57th episode. And of course, it's a play on Heinz 57, which is, the catch up. So, what more of an apt title than Playing Catch Up? You know what I'm saying? Because it's obvious that our people are playing catch up to them, to their selves, to their older selves, to their more ancient selves, to their more noble selves. We playing catch up with our own prophecy. We are self fulfilling prophecy that's playing catch up with our own prophecy. So, you know, what better way but to honor that energy and that observation, but by titling today's presentation "Playing Catch Up." And I'm not gonna waste any of your time. Let me get right into it. All right. Uh, I'll make the necessary announcements. This is Lion Gates Ministry, Mineral Ministry presents Sunday service, our 57th episode featuring Pope Pablo. We are non denominational, mostly conversational, sometimes confrontational. And this is an honest observation of Scripture from a lens that can probably be considered, we come from all walks of life and all different schools. So we take a esoteric observation of it, you know, a metaphysical observation of it. We attempt to decipher whether it's figurative or literal, right? And we look at it also from the standpoint of contract law. You know what I'm saying? How does this stand up contractually? Is it a contract? Is it a covenant? Does it supersede the law of man and the law of land? If it's if it's the contract that you initially signed up in spirit. So all of these things that need to be spoken of and questioned and never got told to us when we were coming up about a system that they told us that our life was contingent upon, that you know how we got with the program was depending on where our soul would go, things of that nature. I mean, they made it seem so serious but gave us no instructions. So we took it upon ourselves to take a deep dive. And the way that we decipher the book is we go from Genesis to Revelation. We read the whole Bible, and we coincide the chapter and the verse with the Gregorian calendar date. So today is 7-9, July 7th, 7-9. So we go into scripture and we find out the chapter and the verses 7-9 that coincide with some sort of conversation, some sort of language, some sort of instructions. Like, what's the commonality amongst those 7-9 chapter and verses throughout the Bible that resonate a vibrational frequency that we can look at, we can hear, we can bring from all the way back there, all the way up until now. You know what I'm saying? How can we make a dead letter religion a living testament? And how can we tweak it and twerk it to make it work for us? Because everybody else did the same for their own agenda. There's 45,000 denominations of Christianity, so everybody ain't on the same script. You got three churches on one block, everybody doing their own thing. Feel me? So let's jump into it. Let's go right into Genesis. And a lot of these things we'll see are somewhat repetitive if you signal the Bible to operate the way in which you need it to, right, on a weekly schedule. You'll see that it says the same things repetitively. This is our master key decoding of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? How to tap into the frequency of it. So the frequency of it, continuously we get to Genesis, they're talking about the ark entering the ark. The clean and unclean animals, the bird and everything that crawls along the ground came to Noah to enter the ark, two by two, male and female, as God had commanded Noah, right? And we utilize this opportunity and this description to remind people, to remind the family that when you want to reset, right? Because now we're dealing with the global reset. In the times of Noah, that was a global reset, right? And the purification came by way of water. They say in this epoch, the purification is supposed to come by way of fire, but it's still a global reset. And the only way that you reset a population or you reset a reality or you reset a program, you need male and female, you need both extremes because that is the key to creation. Those are the elements. And until they make a modification on the key of creation, we're going to stick with the script. You know what I'm saying? So, a man and a female is needed for procreation, or a male and a female of the species is needed and necessary to bring about and foster new life, right? So, our concern, our energy, and our concentration should be with ratifying the original union because that has been the one that's been most rewarding. The return on your investment that you get, you know what I'm saying, with that energy and that dynamic has been consistent for time immemorial, right? It brings you the future, it brings you progeny, and that brings you wealth, you know? So we go hard for family dynamics. In our case, melanated family in particular, because we need the most repair, redress, and um, when I say reparations, I don't mean a handout from the government. I mean repair. You know what I'm saying? So Genesis, right? Let's go to Exodus, which they say was the first book of the Bible instead of Genesis. But you can see the commonality. They often repeat themselves. This one in particular is a repetitive narrative that we have been encountering when we read Exodus about Aaron and Moses in Kemet, when they was in Kemet getting instructions from the Most High on how to snake the people who was taking care of them. So Aaron's staff becomes a serpent. We all know about this. This is magic in the Bible. If we want to take it literal, this is magic. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh tells you perform a miracle, you are to say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord had commanded. Aaron threw his staff down before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. Now, that is not literal. That is a figurative explanation about a process, a magical process. You know what I'm saying? The serpent could be Kundalini in this case. The serpent can be alchemy. The serpent is the scapegoat throughout the Bible for a bunch of alchemical processes that they have layered over with allegory and story, and we running with it like as if the serpent is actually the culprit on this planet of all evil, right? And the performing of magic, Moses and Aaron being endowed by God Himself to perform magic when it's time to show and prove. You know what I'm saying? He could have done a bunch of other things, but he wanted to do that magic, that shapeshifter magic. All right, let's go to Leviticus 7:9. And once again, these themes are often repetitive when we get to Leviticus. It's always about a sin or a guilt offering. It's always about a blood sacrifice of an animal to Jehovah, right? So lo and behold, Leviticus 7:9 is the guilt offering. As for the priest who presents a burnt offering for anyone, the hide of that offering belongs to him, right? So when you skin an animal and you make it available for animal sacrifice, which is called burnt offerings in Leviticus in the Old Testament, the priest, right, the Levite, who's part of that particular priesthood, gets to keep the hide of the animal, right? Once again, they seem to have left a lot of terminology that makes references to African traditional systems. So where else do you see people wearing animal hides? I mean, where else? Likewise, every grain offering that is baked in the oven or cooked in a pan or on a griddle belongs to the priest who presents it. And every grain offering, whether dry or mixed with oil, belongs equally to all of the sons of Aaron. You know what I'm saying? So the progeny of the head priest or the high priest gets to benefit from all of the offerings that come by way of the priesthood. You know what I'm saying? He set his children up lovely to be beneficiaries and benefactors of his good work, his good name, his good title. You know what I'm saying? And the station, the position of which they hold and maintain. So his children will always be fed. But what happens later on in the Bible? They say that God came and killed his children because they offered a burnt offering and they did it the wrong way. So as children of the original high priest or the progenitor of the priesthood, you would expect his children to be the sharpest, right? Priests that have come up under him as a priest. But that wasn't the case, and they lost their lives because of it, right? You will see that all through the Old Testament that quote unquote God is very unforgiving, even though he made a lot of mistakes. You know what I'm saying? He was not infallible in the Old Testament, right? His mistakes started straight off the gate with Adam and Eve, right? He started making the devil look good off the break because he like I told you so, nigga. Let's go to Numbers 7:9. Offerings of dedication. Okay, and he gave the Merarites 4 carts and 8 oxen as their service required, all under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron, the priest. But he did not give any to the Kohathites, since they were to carry on their shoulders the holy objects for which they were responsible. When the altar was anointed, the leaders approached with their offerings for its dedications and presented them before the offering. Before the altar. All right. So again, we encounter this heavy repetitive narrative all throughout the Old Testament about burnt offerings, animal sacrifices. You know what I'm saying? Them offering, putting the fat of the animal on the altar and burning it. The sweet aroma and essence of burnt offerings, they said, excited the nostrils of the Creator and made him pay attention and answering the prayers. That all sounds like African traditional systems to me. All of it. You know what I'm saying? They talking about a whole nother demonstration. Deuteronomy 7:9. Okay, Deuteronomy 7:9 is called casting out the nations. But because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your fathers, that's a contract, right? He brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, right? We just was on that script. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps his covenant of loving devotion for 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. Now, again, we also do this, right? We also do this because we're not clueless. Some of our family is still in Christianity, right? Or you have family that's in Christianity, they have tenants still in Christianity. Regardless of what happens and whether you become conscious or not, you are still tethered to Christianity. You know what I'm saying? You still are, as a people, the battery of this system. So we also do this to help reinforce our people that are still in this particular dogmatic system to help see themselves in the system. How do you extrapolate power from the system that you are involved with? Because you are involved with it. So there is different readings and chapters of the Bible that you can find some power in. If you are in the book, who would you be as the people of the book? This is the question that we want to ask because you're no longer outside of the book. They tell you that you bear the burden, right, of a curse that's attached to the book that allegedly is on your people. So somebody else is telling you who you are in the book. I'm explaining to you that you can find your own way. through this narrative. You can pull on chapter, verse, and scripture that you find to be powerful. In this particular one, Deuteronomy 7:9, this is one of those, it's like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. You want to keep this by you. You know what I'm saying? There's some power in this. It said what? Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps his covenant of loving devotion for 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. Right? But those who hate him, he repays to their faces with destruction. He will not hesitate to repay this to his face, the one who hates him. So if we consider ourselves a loving people who have been nothing but obedient and in alignment with the commandments, right? If we can say that as a people, because that's what Nana and them was working towards. They wanted to be pure. They wanted to, you know what I'm saying? They wanted to be upright. They wanted to, if the Lord come knocking, they wanted to be caught with their pants up and not their pants down. You feel me? They wanted to be good Christians, whatever that meant. That's what our nanas and them wanted to be, right? To them, they are owed a return on the investment. What did they invest? They invested their time, they invested their patience, their diligence, their concentration, right? Where's their ROI? Where is the most high making good on their contract? Some people could say, oh, the evidence of our existence is the proof that God still loves us based on what we've been through. It's neither here nor there. You know what I'm saying? That's left for us to determine. But nonetheless, Deuteronomy 7:9, that's a powerful incantation when you want to remind the cosmos of the contract and the covenant that was made on the behalf of yourself and your people, right? To keep God consistent with what was promised. If you're gonna play the game, you should play it to win. That's all I'm saying. Joshua 7:9, we find ourselves back where we was at last week in the chapter speaking about AI, right? So this is called Israel defeated at AI, right? Israel defeated at AI. Oh Lord, what can I say now that Israel has turned his back and run from his enemies? When the Canaanites and all who live in the land hear about this, they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name? But the Lord said to Joshua, stand up. Why have you fallen on your face? Right? Why have you fallen on your face? Even in defeat at AI. You know what I'm saying? A people defeated are never to lay on their face and wallow in that defeat. You have to dust yourself off and try again. You know what I'm saying? Well, you've seen the memes. You know what I'm saying? The travesty is not getting defeated. The travesty is relinquishing. You know what I'm saying? Acquiescing to that defeat and quitting and giving up and accepting defeat. But if you get up and you try again, you know what I'm saying? It's you going through your trials and tribulations to learn. And there's nothing bad about that. You feel me? People catch L's and they turn them into lessons and they stack them like Tetris bricks. So, yeah, never give up. Judge 7:9, Gideon's dream. That night the Lord said to Gideon, get up and go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid to do so, then go down to the camp with your servant Purah. Right? Um, there's cross references. We can read this in Joshua 10:8. The Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not one of them shall stand against you. Right? Isn't that a beautiful incantation? If you're on the battlefield doing war, right, or about to do war on some Sun Tzu shit, and you get one of them premonitions or dreams, and the Most High tells you that you won the war without even a single shot being fired or a single arrow getting cast from a bow, or a single blow getting thrown and you've won and go and claim your victory, right? You gonna diddy bop like George Jefferson. Go and get your victory. 2 Samuel 7 9. 2 Samuel 7 9. Right? God's covenant with David. Another contract, another covenant. Now then, you ought to tell my servant David that this is what the Lord of hosts says. I took you from the pasture from following the flock to be the ruler over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut off all your enemies from before you. Now I will make for you a name like the greatest in the land, right? And I will provide a place for my people Israel and will plant them so that they may dwell in a place of their own and be disturbed no more. No longer will the sons of wickedness oppress them as they did at the beginning, right? So once again, a contract and a covenant for God telling, you know, uh, in this particular case, David, right? He's going to deal with some brand repair and some brand recognition. That his brand is going to be great and amazing, sanctified amongst other brands. He's going to be the apple, hence, pun intended, right? He's going to be the apple of all other brands. Apple just made it, they just became the first $3 trillion company valuation, $3 trillion, right? The Apple didn't end up so bad as it started. Hmm? Huh? so, yeah, these are powerful incantations to, you know, if you find yourself in alignment with this contract or this covenant, if you find yourself the children of the Most High, the children of Israel, or the Canaanites, who are you in this book? Who's it speaking to? When you close your eyes and you think about God, do you see yourself? Do you see someone that looks like you? When you close your eyes and you think about David, you think about Joshua, right? You think about Ezekiel. What images come to your mind, right? Are these melanated beings or are they anglicized? 2 Kings 7 9. It's called the Siege Lifted, okay? It's chapter. So it's from 7 8 to 7:10. We'll read through it. When the lepers reached the edge of the camp, they went into a tent to eat and drink. Then they carried off the silver, gold, and clothing and went and hid them. On returning, they entered another tent, carried off some items from there, and hid them. Finally, they said to one another, "We are not doing what is right. Today is a day of good news. If we are silent and wait until morning light, our sin will overtake us. Now, therefore, let us go and tell the king's household." So they went and called out to the gatekeepers of the city, saying, "We went to the Aramean camp, and no one was there, not a trace, only tethered horses and donkeys, and the tents were intact." So they felt the need and the necessity to tell on themselves, right? These were lepers. Some people who interpret and decode the Bible will say that the lepers were evidence of quote unquote white folk, but that's not substantiated. You know, that's not substantiated. Some even biblical scholars say that it was a total misinterpretation of the book when they read it to be lepers. They say it means something else. All right, 1 Chronicles, the descendants of Benjamin. We can go through that. 2 Chronicles 7:9. This chapter is called Sacrifices of Dedication. So at that time, Solomon and all Israel with him, a very great assembly of people from Lebo Hamath to the book of Egypt, kept a feast for 7 days. On the eighth day, they held a solemn assembly, for the dedication of the altar had lasted 7 days, and the feast 7 days more. On the 23rd day of the seventh month, Solomon sent the people away to their homes, joyful and glad of heart, for the good things that the Lord had done for David, for Solomon, and for his people Israel. Okay. Let's cross-reference this just to get a better idea. All right, this is in Leviticus 23:26. Is the cross-reference. It says, "For 7 days you are to present an offering made by fire to the Lord. On the eighth day you are to hold a sacred assembly and present an offering made by fire to the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. You must not do any regular work." Right? Another cross reference, Numbers 7:10. When the altar was anointed, the leaders approached with their offerings for its dedication and presented them before the altar. So, in this particular ceremony, they say that it's a prerequisite of 7 days before the altar is ready for offerings, right? They got to dress it up, they got to anoint it, and it has to be consecrated for 7 days. It does not give the instructions on what it takes to consecrate the altar. But in previous chapters that I've read, it was animal fat, right? Anytime that you hear the word anointing, it means animal fat, right? And that's a ceremony that was observed that they got from Kemet, from Egypt. And the anointing of Kemet was dealing with the Karas or the Christ, of which they was utilizing the crocodile fat to make anointments in a place called On, which is the root word of where the word London comes from. On, I believe, is also Heliopolis or Alexandria. Later on, it becomes called Ezra 7:9. Okay, let's go to Ezra 7:9. Ezra goes up to Jerusalem. Ezra arrived in Jerusalem in the 5th month of the 7th year of the king. He had begun the journey from Babylon on the 1st day of the 1st month, and he arrived in Jerusalem on the 1st day of the 5th month, for the gracious hand of his God was upon him. For Ezra had set his heart to study the law of the Lord, to practice it, and to teach its statutes and ordinances in Israel. Where have we heard that before? Statutes and ordinances, right? So in Ezra 7:9, we can go all the way back and find out. Because they talking contract law, right? They said that he wanted to study the law of the Lord and practice it, and to teach its statutes and ordinances in Israel, right? So this is not ecclesiastic law. Yes, On was definitely on the tablets of Enki. On ties in the Sumerians to the Cometians, Heliopolis, and all of them places, right? The On, the aspect of On, that root word ties all of it back to Sumeria and the Babylonians and all of that stuff. Esther 7:9. Haman is hanged. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Would he actually assault the queen while I'm in the palace?" As soon as the words left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbanan, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "There is a gallows 50 cubits high at Haman's house. He had built it for Mordecai, who gave the report that saved the king. Hang him on it," declared the king. So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the fury of the king subsided. You know what I'm saying? So he tried to slide on his lady, which is Esther, which is Queen Esther, right? We've been speaking about Queen Esther this past week because in esoteric occult circles, Madonna is called Queen Esther. She's a Kabbalistic grand priestess, right? She's a high priestess of a Kabbalistic order. I would imagine that she probably has something to do with. Um, there's a Crowleyan sex cult that operates out of Hollywood, and it's and what's the word for their cult? It starts with an O. It's probably the OTO or something like that. But nonetheless, you know what I mean? Nonetheless, that's how she shows up. You know what I mean? She's Queen Esther in that particular demonstration. So we see Queen Esther in this particular passage, right? Dude was trying to slide on Queen Esther in the home of the king, and he got sent up for that. Feel me? He got sent up for that. Shout out to my brothers, Soul Society NC. It's that live alkaline water. Job 7:9. Job continues, life seems futile. The eye that beholds me will no longer see me. You will look for me, but I will be no more. As a cloud vanishes and is gone, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come back up. He never returns to his house. His place remembers him no more. So Sheol is hell, right? It's the underworld. Um, that's the interpretation of Sheol, right? Let's do a cross reference. Let's go to Job 11:8. They are higher than the heavens. What can you do? They are deeper than Sheol. What can you know? So Sheol is hell, right? It's the hellfires or the underworld. So let's go back to Job and get a better understanding of what's being said. The eye that beholds me will no longer see me. You will look for me, but I will be no more. As a cloud vanishes and is gone, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come back up. He never returns to his house. His place remembers him no more. So this is Job saying, that he's about to check out and not go to heaven. He's gonna go to hell, and you're never gonna see him again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, Job was wearing it. I think Job he needed a mushroom. Job needed a shroom trip because he was going through some deep depression and mental illness, and he really needed a mushroom to get him situated. Right. So that's my take on that. That when we reading about Job, yeah, this nigga he probably had a head damage early in life, prefrontal cortex or something, because his trauma was real, right? Psalm 7:9. I take refuge in you. The Lord judges the people. Vindicate me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and integrity. Put an end to the evil of the wicked, but establish the righteous, O righteous God, who searches hearts and minds. My shield is with God, who saves the upright in heart. Now, this is another incantation that you may want to recite. Feel me? This is another incantation that you may want to keep near you and recite. You know what I mean? When times are needed. Psalm 7:9. Put an end to the evil of the wicked, but establish the righteous, O righteous God who searches hearts and minds. Right? My shield is with God who saves the upright in heart. Okay? So if that's your game, if your game is peace, love, and light, that's the psalm for you right there. You want to invoke that. Let's another one. Psalms 11:4. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is on his heavenly throne. His eyes are watching closely. They examine the sons of men. Right? Other day, they were showing me all of the backdoor policy of the new Threat Act. All of the permissions that you give up for monitoring, for surveillance. These apps are not only federally operated, they're military operated. You know what I'm saying? The internet is a military creation. Uh, the protocol that Threads runs off is called Fediverse. So it's no surprise. It would be no surprise to find out that the feds are deeply installed into Meta as a corporation because Elon Musk exposed that they were embedded into Twitter. So why wouldn't they be embedded into Facebook? Facebook is the one doing the censoring. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they gave all of these different, they show you all of these things that you're losing in terms of permission. And I'm like, I'm really not concerned with the Fed's surveillance and monitoring, right? They monitor and surveil everything else. We should be concerned with the angels that are taking full account of what we do every moment and second, the thoughts that we have in our heads. All of this is being transcribed, all of it, becomes a record, you know what I'm saying, that you ultimately gonna have to answer to one day. Nobody's concerned with that though. Nobody's concerned with the shit that you do when nobody's looking that's being recorded by them angels to be on your right and your left. Nobody seems to care. We don't talk about that. But we concerned with the man is looking at. Fucking Proverbs 7:9. Okay. Warnings about the adulteress. Proverbs 7:9. About them hoes. Crossing the street near her corner, strolling down the road to her house at twilight as the day was fading into the dark of the night. Then a woman came out to meet him with the attire of a harlot and cunning of heart. Once again, this is my thing, especially for our people in the Bible Belt, right? That are on social media putting up arguments in defense of Megan Thee Stallion and all of these other controversies that are speaking about modesty and how women should show up. Once again, if you are people that are tethered to this book, if you come out of this book, if you come out of the teachings of this book, if you fall underneath the concerns or the commandments of this book, at some point, right, they had a standing example of what a harlot was. Like these things, hoes existed since the beginning of time, right? Jezebels and all of this stuff comes out the Bible. So and yet in days of law the criteria will be one thing, but in the modern day, what is the criteria of a harlot? Because it clearly said she came outside with the attire of a harlot. You know what I'm saying? If you going out in public to venues and you wearing lace or undergarments to be sure reserved for the bedroom, I really don't want to get in this conversation. I'm just talking shit right now. um like where's the cutoff line? Where's the demarcation line? You know what I'm saying? When does it go from being one thing to another? And I'm not the one to judge that. The people that are having these conversations in public that are very opinionated about it, I think that they should establish some criteria. And it should not just be from a cultural perspective, because our culture has been exposed to the culture of the lowest of lows, of Shaitan himself. That's the air that we breathe. That's the images that we see. We're being heavily influenced by a low caste society. You know what I'm saying? We're being heavily influenced by the defiant ones. So, and they don't care. They don't observe nothing that deals with morality, right? They don't honor their contracts or their covenants. But here we go following them. The our our women's our women's guiding force for a long time has been Marilyn Monroe and Madonna. That has been the persons who have been giving them the cultural cues on how to be counterculture. You know what I'm saying? And express themselves sexually. And then a lot of then the female rappers become knockoffs and dumbed down carbon copy versions of those things that they are looking at for leadership, whether it's Marilyn or Madonna. And then you get dumbed down versions, and then our women start following that. And then here we are today. You feel me? Well, I'm like, we're so far removed. Yeah, we don't want to be puritanical, but what's modest versus harlot? Like, what would you consider to be harlot attire, right? This worn by the adulteress who, her job is to what? Is to seduce. But it's a whole nother conversation. Shout out to Ty Phoenix. We had an amazing 3 hour build yesterday about females and the divine feminine energy in hip hop. It was more than just about females because it was about the energy of divine femininity as well. And it was a thorough dissertation utilizing astrology, right, for receipts. And let's be clear, the Bible is a book of astrotheology. Astrotheology. This is an astrotheological book. Okay. So let's go to Ecclesiastes 7:9. This is called the value of wisdom, right? The end of a matter is better than the beginning, and a patient spirit is better than a proud one. Ooh, that was deep. The end of a matter is better than the beginning, right? Finality, the end of a matter, resolution. You know what I'm saying? Seeing it out to the end. The end of a matter is better than the beginning of a matter. And a patient spirit is better than a proud one. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger settles in the lap of a fool. Do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is unwise of you to ask about this, right? And we find ourselves doing that often. I find myself even doing it, right? As a reminder, don't do it no more. Feel me? Do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is unwise of you to ask about this. Let's go to a cross reference, right? So we can simplify it. Proverbs 14:29. A patient man has great understanding, but a quick tempered man promotes folly. Okay? Don't follow quick tempered individuals. And shout out once again to Ty Phoenix. I'm an Aries rising, Aries moon. I have a tendency to be hot tempered and quick tempered, and I'll respond to something very aggressively and with rash decisions. That's not the greatest thing to do. You know what I'm saying? You have to employ a level of discernment, discretion, and patience to see things out. And that deals with breathing, mastering the breath, to not be so quick, to not be so hot headed, you know what I'm saying? To not be so quick tempered. That deals with shortness of breath, you know what I'm saying? Not leading, but being led by shortness of breath. That's not a good policy. It's not a good policy. You want to master your breathing so you can be patient, right? And see things through, right? Diplomacy is a mark of masculinity. It's the masculine part of divine masculine, whereas warfare is feminine on the tree of life. It's the left handed path. The right handed path is diplomacy. It's expected of men to be diplomats. You know what I'm saying? Hence the fact it said what? The end of a matter is better than the beginning. So if you master diplomacy, if you master the tenets of how to actually be level headed and patient, then you can see things through to their finality. Let's go to Songs of Solomon 7:9, right? Admiration by the bridegroom. I said, I will climb the palm tree, I will take hold of its fruits. May your breast be like clusters of the vine, the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the finest wine. May it flow smoothly to my beloved, gliding gently over lips and teeth. I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. So this is how they used to talk to one another. This sounds like 1960s R&B. You know what I'm saying? They were able to put their desires for one another in such beautiful prose and poem. And you know, I think that when people is like, again, this harkens back to that passage right before when we talk about the past and the old days and why can't things be like they was back in the days? Why can't we talk to our women and they talk to us in a respectable manner and tone. And we were utilizing suggestive language and music, but we weren't being raunchy with it. You know what I'm saying? We weren't being so outward and overt. There was still some poetic flair to it. You know what I'm saying? Your mouth is like the finest wine. May it flow smoothly to my beloved, gliding gently over lips and teeth. Right? They was talking that talk. You know what I mean? We don't keep nothing for the imagination these days, right? Think about it when LL was telling the pink cookies in a plastic bag getting crushed by a building. I mean, he was like, nigga, what? Right? You gonna pull up on Shorty and be like, your pink cookies in a plastic bag about to get crushed by a building. All right, let's go to Isaiah 7:9. Isaiah 7:9, right? A message to Ahaz. For the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. Within 65 years, Ephraim will be shattered as a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is the son of Remaliah. If you do not stand firm in your faith, then you will not stand at all, right? And that's a resounding message across all demonstrations, religions, doctrines, or what have you. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you're not going to stand tall at all. What else are you going to stand for if you're not standing in your faith? And faith gets negative connotations because of its religious connotations, but faith and belief are two words that they existed before religion. You know what I'm saying? They existed before religion. If I'm stepping in the dark and I'm placing my foot before me, I have faith that my foot is going to land somewhere solid and navigate me. You know what I'm saying? You got to have faith. You got to have belief before you have knowledge and gnosis of a thing. Take it out of its religious context. You know what I'm saying? Jeremiah, Jeremiah 7:9 said Jeremiah's message at the temple gate. Then I will let you live in this place in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. That's another contract. But look, you keep trusting in deceptive words to no avail. Will you steal and murder, commit adultery and perjury, burn incense to Baal, and follow other gods that you have not known? Right? So we often speak about this, how the God of the Bible, the Old Testament in particular, which is known as Jehovah, was a very jealous God, right? And he was insecure about his rivalry with Baal from the Babylonians. He was insecure about his rivalry with the Cometian gods as well. My question was always, this infallible, omnipresent, and omnipotent God, how would he allow another nation of people to rise up on his planet, on his earth, and get the drop on a whole sophisticated system of them establishing gods and worship systems? Because they're still finding things in Kemet. They're still finding things in different parts of Iraq with the Babylonians and the Sumerians that speak to a very complex version of observance and worship. The old dudes themselves from African traditional systems are over 40,000 years old, right? There's so many traditions on this planet that were locked in step, strategically locked in step, right? The highest form of expression of intellect is when you can build your science into your architecture. So the fact that pyramids are still standing after 3,000, 4,000 years, right? Imbued with the information, the science of those people speaks to a level of achievement and their spirituality that's unprecedented. How can a people be able to do that at least 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 years before God sends his only son here to intervene, or before he even pays attention to his own people and endows them with the information that they can compete? Because everybody else that was fucking with gods, they was popping until a jealous God came along and wanted to take their shit, because he empowers his children to become mass murderers and run down on them kill them off and take their shit. Who does that sound like? Anyway, Ezekiel 7:9. This is called the hour of doom. Doom has come to you, O inhabitants of the land. The time has come, the day is near. There is panic on the mountains instead of shouts of joy. Very soon I will pour out my wrath upon you and vent my anger against you. I will judge you according to your ways and repay you for all your abominations. I will not look on you with pity, nor will I spare you, but I will punish you for your ways and for the abominations amongst you. Then you will know that it is I, the Lord, who strikes the blow. This nigga needs a hug. He needs some shrooms. He needs a hug. He needs a whiz, right? He got way too much time on his hands. So God was heavy handed on his people. And if you are to assume the position to say that you are children of the Most High, right, then you yourself understand that the judgment of your God is a heavy handed judgment. And there's never been a time either the children of Israel are up or they down. There never seems to be any middle ground. So either you being castigated for things that you have done that are in error, right, that are outside of your covenant and your contract, or you're being admonished and poured favor upon because you finally fell in line and you're running in alignment with what your contract stipulates, right? So if you consider yourselves people of the Bible, children of the Bible, where do you find yourself in your relationship with your God, right? Are you being hoisted as a people, or are you being chastised and castigated as a people, right? For falling out of alignment with your contract, for worshiping at the altar of other gods, for not keeping your covenants. Which one? Because the hour of doom is amongst you, right? And we see our people so twisted, and we asking ourselves, well, why? How did this happen? Why us? Why not? Daniel 7:9. Daniel's vision of the Ancient of Days, the Ancient of Days. As I continued to watch, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from his presence. Thousands upon thousands attended him, and myriads upon myriads stood before him. The court was convened, and the books were opened. Okay? So this is an amazing judgment scene right here. This needs to be illustrated. Matter of fact, I'm gonna run this through Runway Generator to see what image we can get from AI. This is a beautiful scenario that's being spelled out in Daniel's. We know Daniel is what? Daniel is summoned to the court of King Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian, I believe, because he's a dream interpreter, right? He's a soothsayer amongst the people in the land that are soothsayers, but he has a different gift altogether because they say that his is endowed by creator. So he's not like the other soothsayers, right, who are pulling from pagan resources for their interpretation, but they're saying that he's favored coming from the house, right, of David in him. And he's speaking about the Ancient of Days. So he said, as I continued to watch, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and his wheel were all ablaze. Right? A river of fire was flowing, coming out from his presence. Thousands upon thousands attended him, and myriads upon myriads stood before him. The court was convened, and the books were opened. So they cracked the books, right? The seals are broken and the books are open. So when that happens, that means that's a judgment scene. That's when they're about to start dealing with retribution and redress, right? Because the books being open is the same thing that I'm saying that we're concerned about social media surveilling and monitoring us, but nobody speaks about the angel on the left and the right that's recording all of your activities and keeping notes. That's your book. That's your book of life, right? When you go to your judgment scene, your books will be open and they're going to weigh your heart against the feather, metaphorically speaking. Okay. Matthew 28:3. This is a cross reference to this. So people can stop asking me why I'm in all white. His appearance was like lightning and his clothes were white as snow. Let's go to Mark 9:3. His clothes became radiantly white, brighter than any launderer on earth could bleach them. Radiantly white, right? Whiter than snow. Ephraim's iniquity. This is Hosea 7:9. Ephraim's iniquity. Ephraim mixes with the nations. Ephraim is an unturned cake, a unturned cake. Foreigners consume his strength, but he does not notice. Even his hair is streaked with gray, but he does not know. Israel arrogance testifies against them, yet they do not return to the Lord their God. Despite all of this, they do not seek him. You know what I'm saying? So once again, examples of even God grapples with his children to get attention. He's a parent that no longer has the favor of his child. His children are being raised by the world. As parents that are listening to this, you can correlate. You know what I'm saying? As a parent, you poured into these children. You dealt with them in their toddler year, the adolescent years, and then they become tweens, and they don't come out their room no more. And now they're being socialized by social media. Now they're being spoken. Now they're being raised by the people who they play video games with, Call of Duty, which are other children on the other side of those joysticks. Now they're going to school and being taught how to use anal plugs. You're not their God anymore. And you're going to be struggling and grappling with these children for the remainder of their lives for them to pay attention to you, to look at your face and see the glory of the Most High. When my father spoke, I listened, right? Because I had fear of the retribution that comes from not listening. He was my God at that time, right? If we could put the state before the church or our contract, covenant, and understanding of religion, right? Then your home also is a microcosm of your relationship to your macrocosm, right? Of the bigger house where they said that my father has many mansions. So it's the same thing. The parenting in the house resembles this whole, what I'm saying, biblical concept. The Our Father who art in heaven, the smaller scale version of that would be our Father, right? And when that's missing altogether, then where does a person get the understanding of the demonstration of what fatherly love entails? Because in my household, it was tough love. It was tough love, but it definitely established the understanding. I knew that he was not to be played with. You know what I'm saying? Amos 7:9, the locust fire and plumb line. Right, this when it's like a Masonic chapter out the Bible. This is what he showed me. Behold, the Lord was standing by a wall true to plumb, with a plumb line in his hand. Amos, what do you see? Asked the Lord. A plumb line, I replied. Behold, said the Lord, I am setting a plumb line amongst my people Israel. I will no longer spare them. The high places of Isaac will be deserted, and the sanctuaries of Israel will be laid waste. And I will rise up against the house of Jeroboam with my sword. Right? So this is that, this is him meting out justice and retribution, get his children in line, get their attention again through a very swift hand. Micah 7:9. Israel looks to the Lord. But as for me, I will look to the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. Do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will arise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. Because I have sinned against him, I must endure the rage of the Lord until he argues my case and executes justice for me. He will bring me into the light. I will see his righteousness. So this is another example of a person who has acquiesced, right, and they have succumbed to the payment of sin, right? The fact that they like, oh, I'm out of order, I'm out of line, you know what I'm saying, and now I'm being chastised for it. You know what I mean? Now I'm being dragged for it, and I'm gonna take this treatment like a man. You're right until I'm back in good standing in the eyes of the Most High, who they have their contract and their covenant with. These are markers to remind men of the modesty that is required, the morality that's required in society for you to be an upright individual. You can create your own contract and covenant with whoever you deem to be your highest power, your higher order, or your creator or your God. But for you to have nobody to check in with, for you to have no backboard for you to bounce off of, right? That's what this shit looks like outside today. Who do these niggas answer to other than their big homie? Have they no shame? Right? When you remove the shame factor from society, you get what we got today. Right? These niggas don't have no shame. Zechariah 7:9, a call to justice and mercy. When the word of the Lord came to Zechariah, saying, this is what the Lord of hosts say. Administer true justice, show loving devotion and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. Why is that so hard? Right? That's a universal testament. I don't care what stripe of religion is called. I like that. You know what I'm saying? That's honest. Administer true justice, show loving devotion and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor, and do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. Simple, right? How do you remain upright? How do you remain modest? How do you remain of moral standing and character? You have to have some principles, you have to have some tenets, you have to have some commandments that you abide by. It don't matter how you retrieve them or achieve them, but you should have you some. Matthew 7:8. Now we're in the New Testament, right? Ask, seek, knock. And you'll notice the tenor of the language in the New Testament is drastically different than the Old Testament. Drastically different. There's an entire shift. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be open. Which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone, right? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake. Feel me? So, as a father, as a responsible father, as a carer, a protector and a provider, is there anything that your children can come to you for that you would not provide them with or try to figure out a way to furnish them with their heart's desire? If they came to you and asked you as a father to supply them with something, if your answer is no, then that, you know what I'm saying? That's in line with a father. If the answer is yes, then you have some internal dialogue that you got to situate with yourself, right? To create your aptitude and your willpower to say whatever I need, whatever I want, you know what I'm saying, I can acquire, especially if it's for my child. That's a whole nother conversation. And we gotta, as community, as a brotherhood in the community, we need to reinforce these conversations because all of us did not have the benefit of being raised by parents, by fathers in particular. Some of us have fathers, and the fathers even gave bad examples. So we got to reinforce one another with these conversations about what are our children in what are our children endowed? What are we going to leave these children? What are we leaving them with now? What examples are we setting? You know what I'm saying? Am I checking up on your seeds? You know, am I being responsible? Are we the village that's supposed to be raising these children? Feel me? Do you supposed to know in your heart how to get out there and get what's needed for your child so they don't go out there and do it on their own until they are of age and responsibility to go out there and do it for themselves, right? Because case in point, I remember me when I started boosting, it was because my father told me no. He wouldn't buy me GI Joes. He wouldn't buy me GI Joes, right? And it started me doing, going out there and doing things for self. It wasn't the most noblest of things to do, you know what I'm saying? But I often wonder, if he did make that purchase for me, would I have ever delved into that level of decision making to say I'm gonna go take some shit on my own if I can't afford it. Mark 7:9, tradition and worship. You have disregarded the commandment of God to keep the tradition of men. Read that again. You and shit. I would utilize this verse to go to court. If I wanted to push back against the Supreme Court ruling, I would invoke Mark 7:9. You have disregarded the commandment of God to keep the tradition of men. If there's a separation of church and state, which one takes precedent? What I'm being told by church, because your church could be anything, right? Or what I'm being told by the state to do. So if the church tells me that the very first commandment and the most important one is thou shalt not kill, but then I turn 18 and the state tells me that I got to sign up for the army to become a soldier who's licensed to kill, which one am I supposed to listen to? Am I supposed to listen to the law of the land that came from man? Or am I supposed to listen to the law that comes from the Most High that tells me that the condition of my soul is contingent upon the fact that I'm supposed to listen to what's told to me and not commit sin against myself or my God? Why am I going to kill these other men for state sanctioned politics, for the free flow of oil, for mineral resources, or is this a religious war? Luke 7:9, the faith of the centurion. For I myself am a man under authority, who soldiers under with soldiers under me. I tell no one to go, and he goes. Oh, I tell one to go, and he goes, and another to come, and he comes. I tell my servant to do something, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled at the centurion. Turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such great faith. And when the messengers returned to the house, they found the servant in good health. So this is a perfect example of what I was just speaking about, right? This centurion, the centurion is a soldier for Rome. If you don't know what a centurion is, a centurion will be considered like a soldier, but he would be like a lieutenant or a general, right? I don't know all of the rankings in the military as they go, but he's somebody who commands men. He has a legion. A centurion commands a legion of men, right? And his soldiers themselves, and they're part of a larger army. But this soldier or this centurion, is able to wield their power and their influence over other men and make them go and kill, right? By command of the word. So if you are soldiers in somebody else's army and that army is not in alignment with your faith and your profession, right? Then who are you fighting for? You racking up bodies in whose war? You racking up rank in whose army? You stacking up bodies, right? On whose altar? Hmm? What war are you really fighting? John 7:9, right? Jesus teaches at the feast. Go up to your feast on your own. I am not going up to this feast because my time has not yet come. Having said this, Jesus remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, he also went, not publicly, but in secret. You know what I'm saying? And he's things like, I'm not going to the barbecue. Y'all pull up to the cookup. You know what I'm saying? Bring me back some chicken. I mean, they said Jesus was an herbivore. Bring me back some fried broccoli and some cauliflower, right? Then the nigga put a wig on with some woman garb and he was pushing the cart just to observe what the fuck was going on, but he didn't show up as himself. He showed up in the disguise. That's how that plays out. Jesus pulled up to the cookout dressed up like he was Aunt Mabel because he was extra when he was showing up and shit. If he couldn't pull up, if they couldn't get the black Uber XL, if he couldn't get the big boy, he didn't want to go. He wanted to step out in style. He's like, nah, I just ain't showing up on feet. I'm trying to pull up. Acts. Acts 7:9. Stephen's addressed to the Sanhedrin. So the Sanhedrin in this case would be the Supreme Court of their time. Then God gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision, and Abraham became the father of Isaac and circumcised him on the eighth day. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob of the 12 patriarchs. Because the patriarchs were jealous of Joseph, they sold him as a slave to Egypt. But God was with him and rescued him from all his troubles. He granted Joseph favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who appointed him ruler over Egypt and all his household. I don't know why Kemet gets such a bad rap in these books. But even God sounds like he's jealous of the marvels that was made by the Commissions that still stand to this day as a testament, right, to their mastering of the principles, spirituality, art, and all of that. When you could build it into your architecture, that is the highest form of your spirituality, right? When the architecture can exemplify, personify, and express the things that you're speaking about philosophically, no culture surpasses that. That is the highest form of civilizations. And Cometians did it, the Sumerians did. Look, they did it in India. The Indus Kush Valley did it. You know what I'm saying? All of these people achieved high level civilizations. They did it over here when you go to the Incans and the Mayans. These are high level civilizations, all part of the pyramidal circle that circles the planet. These people were high mathematicians. The only way that you can achieve this level of architecture and artistry, you have to master math. You have to master mathematics. You have to master measurement. You have to master proportions. You have to master geometry. No low level civilization can do this. And they eradicated these high level civilizations in place for a religion that came by way of sheep herders. No disrespect, no disrespect, but you can't show us anything in the Hebraic world that stands as a testament that has been here for over 3,000 years that exemplifies high society. Even the Muslims can show you the Alhambra, and that speaks to Allah's integer, mastering mathematics in order to develop, right, architecture. And the Moors built the cathedral, so Christians can't even point to their cathedrals and say, well, this is evidence of us mastering these lessons and putting them into architecture by form of masonry. They can't speak on that because they converted old castles that the Moors built into cathedrals. Okay, so once again, this Acts 7:9, Stephen's address to the Sanhedrin. Okay, let's go to Romans 7:9. God's law is holy, but sin, seizing its opportunity through the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Once I was alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin sprang to life and I died. So I discovered that the very commandment that was meant to bring life actually brought death. That's deep, right? Let's read that again. But sin, seizing its opportunity through the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire. For apart from the law, sin is dead. Once I was alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin sprang to life and I died. So I discovered that the very commandment that was meant to bring life actually brought death. Now we would have to zero in what commandment specifically they're speaking about. And I don't have that cross reference right now, right? But that was a deep commandment right there. I mean, that was a deep, that was a deep verse. God's law is holy. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. And anything written by Romans is written by Paul. So I got to definitely research this a little bit deeper. 1 Corinthians 7:9. Principles of marriage. Now to the unmarried and widows I say this: it is good for them to remain unmarried as I am. But they cannot control themselves, let them marry. But if they cannot control themselves, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this command, not I, but the Lord: a wife must not separate from her husband. So the Bible wants you to believe that Jesus came and died with blue balls, right? He never took on the wife, right? He had a shorty, you know what I'm saying? Mary Magdalene, but he ain't wife her. And based on different scripture that you read, according to the King's James version, they say that he didn't pipe her, but other versions said that he did pipe her. And they had a bloodline, they had a progeny, they had family. He wifed her up. You know what I'm saying? So, he's telling them, if you cannot control your desires, marry her. Because back then, you don't just slide up in her. You got to marry her. You know what I'm saying? If you want the boots, if you want the box, you know what I mean? If you wanted safe passage to heaven, which is between her legs, you had to marry her. No sampling the milk, buy you the cow. That's how they was giving it up. 1 Thessalonians 4:4. This is a cross reference. Each of you must know how to control his own body in holiness and honor, right? So I ain't getting into what you think about Kiki Palmer, what you think about Meg the Stallion, and what NDIRE said. To each his own. This is all coming down to a matter of perspective, and we're gonna witness a civil war amongst our people. But at the end of the day, is 1 Thessalonians 4:4. You feel me? Each of you must know how to control his own body in holiness and honor. What does that mean to you? You know what I'm saying? So it's going to mean different things to different people, and that's what you're responsible for. How you look in the mirror. Can you rationalize and use logic and reason? You know what I'm saying, to make sense of this shit for yourself? You. That's what you were responsible for. I can't be responsible for that for you. I cannot. Only myself, right? So it's the same with these women. They got to take their own level of responsibility. They got to answer their own Lord. Yes, we are a village and a community and a people, and we should be concerned. But all of this over policing of one another's sexual expressions, this shit is tiring. And it's almost like you're chasing your tail. You know what I'm saying? It ain't going nowhere. You can't unconvince a hoe to not hoe. Like, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Anyway, 2 Corinthians 7:9. Paul's joy in the Corinthians. Even if I caused you sorry by my letter, I do not regret it. Although I did regret it, I now see that my letter caused you sorrow, but only for a short time. And now I rejoice, not because you were more made sorrowful, but because your sorrow led you to repentance. For you felt the sorrow that God had intended, and so were not harmed in any way by us. Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation without regret, but worldly sorrow brings death. Now, Paul was teaching, Paul was talking and teaching in this, right? So he's like this: if I said some shit to offend you, right? But the shit that I said that offended you made you actually look at yourself and do a correction, right? Then I'm not offended by the fact that I offended you if ultimately it led to you becoming a better version of yourself. Because you had to check that lower version of yourself, put that shit in check, and rise to your higher calling. Then my job was done. You know what I'm saying? That's called tough love. So let's keep it moving. Let's go to Hebrews 7:9. Melchizedek and Abraham. And indisputably, the lesser is blessed by the greater. In the case of the Levites, mortal men collect the tenth, but in the case of Melchizedek, it is affirmed that he lives on. And so to speak, Levi, who collects the tenth, paid the tenth through Abraham, right? This goes back and harkens to an older passage in Hebrew to 5:6. In another passage, God says, you are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, right? So, would you want to be an earthly priest who is concerned with on Sunday sermons collecting the tithes, passing the plate around and collecting the 10%? Is that your highlight as a priest? Or would you rather be a spiritual priest in the order of Melchizedek and be a priest for life? And the highest order of priests, right? The higher order of priesthood, the high priest, who deals with the spiritual affairs of people, not with the physical collection and passing around the money plate and making sure that you paid your 10%. I seen a video the other day on Instagram. They was shaking homie down in the back room for his 10%. And that's really not even what the Bible means when they talk about the 10% and collecting 10% of your tithes and your earnings. These are all, once again, metaphysical concepts that have been taken literal to the benefit of the money collectors who initially got their tables turned over because they don't got no place in the temple collecting 10%. I'd rather be in the priesthood of Melchizedek. Revelation 7:9. Okay. Praise from the great multitude. From the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000. From the tribe of Joseph, 12,000. From the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000. So we're going to go through all of these tribes, right? After the 12 tribes are counted, 12,000 apiece, you get to 144,000. Hence, that's Revelation 7:4. Revelation 7:4 is the 144,000 chosen, right? But Revelation 7:9 reads, after this I looked and saw a multitude too large to count, from every nation and tribe and people and tongue, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, salvation to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. Okay? So I think once again, we showed commonality through reading scripture of 7:9 throughout the Bible. We probably saw three different passages when they spoke about all white, right? Priestly robes, those being of a higher righteousness or a higher order in righteousness, being robed in white, glowing white, gleaming white, right? Holy white. Feel me? So please understand that, the all white is a movement. Not in Mike Rubin's house for the all white party, but you gotta have balance. You gotta have balance. So don't be wearing all white bunny hopping. That's not how you should show up in your all white. We need you to be priestly. So yeah, that's Revelation. That concludes our demonstration, dissertation, and observation of another high level conversation that we had here by way of Mineral Ministry and Lion Gates Ministry presents episode 57, right? Playing catch up. Okay. Who are we playing catch up with? The ancient ones, the ancient of days, our older selves. Who we were as a people, as a nation that had a contract and a covenant with our creator who was given when it was supposed to be given. And when we did not give, then we had to bear the brunt of the penalty that comes with being out of alignment, strictly because, we want to be in lock and step with our creator on the war path to undo ignorance and head back to righteousness, to be upright as a people, to take our rightful space and place as leaders, as owners, as creators, as the cream of the crop of this universe, as the God bodies that we know that we are, right? Put down the goofy shit and let's get back to godliness. And with that, I want to say peace, love, and light. Um, my good brother Angel, you got anything for us before we close out? Okay. Yeah. What happened here? Tapping into the chat. How can you curse and utter a word of scripture at the same time? Okay. Somebody in my all right, he said, first off, white robes and garments in heaven should not be compared to going to some party wearing all white or some worldly movement of wearing all white. This brother's playing a dangerous game. My friend, what I'm explaining is that white stipulates is earthbound. Then there's a higher order of a priesthood, which is what the reflection that they have in heaven when they say that they're amongst the 24 elders, when they're amongst the ancient of hosts, right? They say that you can even see God in his white, you can see Jesus in white, you can see all of these different figures in white, right? And that is an expression of what's considered to be holiness, purity, right? Or the blinding of light, okay? And then there's also a cross correlation, yes, in the African traditional systems which supersede Christianity or Judaism, where all white is attributed to Obatala. Okay, every system has a demonstration of figures in all white that speak to holiness. Majority of these systems precede, the accounts of Christianity. So please, and if I'm speaking about the cross correlation in culture of how people show up in all white, and all white signifies purity, but they're doing bunny hopping, in parties with billionaires. I'm saying that that's not the expression of all white that we can look at. And let's not be fooled by looking at all white thinking that we're always going to see quote unquote holiness or righteousness or uprightness. And case in point, I'm using the cultural reference to say, well, look at the all white party that we just witnessed on our timelines with Michael Rubin. So I'm not being blasphemous, um, believer in Christ, right? I'm utilizing expression to explain the narrative. Let me explain to you what happens because you just might drop in very, very late into the demonstration. Lion Gates Ministry and Mineral Ministry are non denominational, mostly conversational, and sometimes confrontational. Okay? Everybody gets put to, scrutiny. We're not taking anything on surface because you guys did a very terrible job of interpreting the Bible. So we'll take it from here. And that's our demonstration. That's how we show up because y'all don't know what y'all doing. Y'all have not, given the people what they needed in terms of your interpretation, right? So let me do what it is that I do over here, thankfully. Okay? Believer in Christ. How can a holy man curse? You never been to church? You feel me? There's nothing that comes from us that is not sanctified, right? To a degree based on how we use it. We created these words. And what denotes a curse word, right? To me, white Jesus is a curse word, right? There are no curse words. These are all translations and mistranslations and a lack of understanding as to the true nature of these words. There are no curse words. In some parts of the planet, Christianity is a curse word. White Christ is a curse word. White Jesus is a curse word. The Vatican Church is a curse word. Catholicism is a curse word. Okay, so once again, let's stop with the Puritanism. Feel me? You're coming at me like a Puritan, yeah. And profanity and cursing are two different things, right? But nonetheless, I appreciate your input, your feedback, and the opportunity to clarify ourselves. But making comparisons and contrasts, especially what it is that we're doing, we're bringing dead letter religion up until the now to give it, breathe life into it, to make it a living testament. In that respect, we can make comparisons, right, to culture and put things in cultural context in the here and now to give our people a better understanding. So yes, we use contrast in order to do that. Yes, we use comparisons in order to do that. Feel me? We do that. So again, I want to say thank you for those who have joined us on today's live. Um, and yes, you know, hopefully something that was shared today resonates with you and you're able to walk away with it, you know what I'm saying, and share it with other individuals to give them some insight. And, again, your redeeming value as a people is to go out here in the world and do random acts of kindness. You know what I'm saying? Do some random acts of kindness. In our demonstration and our understanding, when we speak about Jesus or the Christ, that is the higher form of our being. That's righteousness. He who sits at the right hand of the Most High deals with the right hemisphere of the brain, which is your divine feminine. So Do you something that taps you further into your divine femininity. And I don't think painting your fingernails pink like Drake, I don't, that's not what I mean by that. You know what I'm saying? Divine femininity is creativity, is being out in nature, is painting, is doing music, is doing poetry, is meditating, is learning how to breathe. You know what I'm saying? Is dealing with self-care, not logic and reason, not left brain activity, not masculine, right? But divine femininity, bring balance back to the vessel, bring balance back to scripture who has suppressed all femininity, not just divine femininity as an energy, but the female specifically as a being has been destroyed and castigated by this book. So these are the things that we need to restore to bring back balance. Okay? These are the things that need to be restored to bring back balance. And if we're focused and concentrating on a curse word and not principalities that exist in high places that need to be extinguished and dealt with, then you're fighting the wrong fight. And that's what this whole conversation was about. This whole dissertation and conversation about showing up for war and fighting the wrong fight. This is exactly what I'm speaking about. You in my comment section fighting the wrong fight, attempting to police my tongue. General, you there? Peace, God. Angel. Yeah, so again, thank you for tapping in to today's demonstration, episode 57, playing catch up, featuring yours truly, Pablo. All right. On behalf of Lion Gates Ministry and Mineral Ministries, in conjunction with Nodal Edge Media, once again, we want to say thank you. And yeah, tune in for the next one. It is going to be phenomenal. Peace.